Hello, everybody. I am Don Finn, President of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I welcome you to today's video where we're going to be talking to Ellen Beattie from the Maryland Department of Labor, and she's going to discuss her article entitled Vision 2021, Creativity at the Core, Preparing Adult Learners for an Uncertain Workforce. And yeah, it was my pleasure to read this article and to be on the editorial team as we reviewed articles, and just found this to be a very interesting article, and I hope that you will too. So I want to introduce Ellen, and Ellen, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to talk with our readers. And if you don't mind, could you just give us a brief introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Thank you, Don. So my name is Ellen Beattie, and I am the Chief of Adult Instructional Services with Maryland Department of Labor. I've worked in adult education for about 8 years. Previously, I was with the Community College of Baltimore County. So I've seen the programs from the practitioner side, and now I get to see the programs from the state side.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to contribute your wisdom and to really look at some of the research and provide such a useful article. So let me just ask you just right off the bat, why did you write this article for the COABE Journal?
So I love sharing knowledge with the field. That's one of the missions that I have. And when I was reading about the workforce development, there were a couple of themes that I kept seeing. The first was this mismatch between the skills that employees have and the employer needs, the required skills to move organizations forward in today's world. And certainly that's not a new mismatch, but it just seems to be a reoccurring theme in whatever market we're talking about. The second theme that I saw was this uncertain workforce of the future. Now, keep in mind, this article was written pre-COVID pandemic. So even more so now, the relevance of not knowing exactly what the workforce of today, let alone tomorrow, looks like for our learners. So as I was reading and researching, the one skill that kept rising to the surface in every employer survey seemed to be creativity. So creativity was a top 1 or 2 skill in the 2019 and the 2020 LinkedIn employer survey. And that's really what made me think, hey, let's look at creativity and what creativity can do for our academic programs that we are presenting to our students, and also how we can develop those skills in our learners. So it was that, coupled with the explosion of academic literature around the concept of creativity, and this new understanding that we have from neuroscience about what the creative brain looks like, and what does the brain do, and what regions are activated, what neurochemicals are engaged when someone is engaging in the creative process. So it was really the convergence of those 3 things, the highlighting creativity as a real in-demand workforce skill, the scholarly research that can provide so many evidence-based practices for our field, and also this new understanding of the creative brain that drove me to write the article.
Well, thank you so much for that overview, and I really do think that our readers are going to find it to be quite interesting and kind of a new realm in a sense, because as we are looking at the current state of adult education, and particularly as we're looking at COVID recovery, there's a lot of emphasis on workforce skills, and oftentimes that focuses on more of your soft skills and your communication skills. But the whole idea of creativity is something that, and linking it, of course, to neuroscience, I think it's very fascinating. So let me ask you, what will adult education practitioners benefit? How will they benefit from reading your article? And also, how will that in turn benefit their learners?
That's a great question. So this article is a really deep exploration of creativity. It really aims to bring some clarity to this topic that is often elusive to us. So it frames creativity as a skill and not a talent. It does share a lot of what we know from the neuroscience perspective, the neurobiology of the neural networks that are engaged, the neurochemicals that are active during the process of being creative. So the practitioner, I hope, is going to get a deeper perspective of honing their own creativity. I'm a big proponent of the idea that we can't teach or develop anything in our learners until we teach and develop it to ourselves. So there's a whole section on the creative leader. So how can a leader use creativity to drive outcomes and to manage all of the performance measures that our field is constantly facing? How can they overcome the challenges, and how can they use creativity and innovation to do that, both in themselves and in the teams that they lead? Now, the second half of the article is all about creativity in the classroom, right? Writing with the learner in mind. So how can we use the evidence-based strategies to understand how we can develop these skills in our learners? How can we talk to these learners about the importance of creativity and how benefiting themselves it will be for them to engage their creative process when they come across a challenge or have to solve a problem? So in the second half of the article, there's a lot of strategies, there's research-based suggestions on how we can support and develop that that creativity from the learner perspective.
That's really excellent, and I do appreciate how you have taken the literature, how you've taken the science, and you've really put this into a practical framework for our readers. We value that very much in the COABE Journal, and I must say that I really highly appreciate the quote that you have from Einstein: "Creativity is intelligence having fun." I think that really states that says a whole lot, definitely. And yet I also like how not only are you talking about the learner, but you're talking about the importance of creativity in the instructor as well. So I think those are very important points. And so as we're kind of wrapping this up, from your perspective, what do you hope that readers will take away from this article?
I have two main takeaways for the readers of the article. First is that I want our readers to know that creativity is not mystical. We need to start seeing creativity as a buildable skill and not an innate talent, because it is only from that perspective that we can put forth the energy and the effort to develop creativity. The second takeaway is that only teaching basic literacy skills will not prepare our learners for the workforce of today, let alone the uncertain workforce of tomorrow. So for us to really fulfill our mission in adult literacy, to develop workforce readiness in our learners, we must teach learners the interdisciplinary skills that they're going to need to put all of that content to work. So the critical thinking, the problem solving, and of course, the creativity.
And I will say that one aspect of the article that I really appreciated was the section about the creative leader, and talking about how creative leaders drive organizational performance, and that they can actually serve as models of demonstrating creativity and the development of unique ideas and strategies and so on. Can you speak to that a little bit more, particularly for those folks maybe approaching this from an administrator's lens?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I think our field and our local programs are facing tremendous pressure. We certainly know that there are pressures around performance outcomes, but we also have pressures from, of course, in our COVID world. We have reopening pressures, we have staffing challenges, we have many different generations, many different people with diverse backgrounds and experiences coming together to lead those programs. And truly, it's innovation and creativity that's what's needed to solve those issues. The same thinking that got us into the challenges that we face today won't get us out of them. So those ideas about being creative, encouraging creativity in others, helping others to develop their own creative skills are all very important elements, and elements that I certainly hope the readers take away from reading the creativity article.
Definitely, I agree with you, and I do think, in the context of COVID and COVID recovery for programs, creative approaches are going to be the ones that are really going to, I think, be instrumental in getting programs back to business and reaching those learners. So just to wrap it up, Ellen, let me ask you: do you have any additional comments or any additional insights that you'd like to share?
I just appreciate COABE creating a journal for our field. I'm a firm believer in evidence-based practices and using the data and the literature to support how we're developing our academic programs. And I just want to thank COABE for allowing the field to have a place to share ideas, because I think that is what really truly progresses our field and ultimately the success of our learners.
Ellen, thank you so much for taking time. And just as a reminder, Vision 2021, Creativity at the Core, Preparing Adult Learners for an Uncertain Workforce. Again, this is by Ellen Beattie from the Maryland Department of Labor. We appreciate you taking the time, Ellen, not only to visit with us today, but also the time that you took to write such an interesting article about the value of creativity. Thank you so much for your time.